December 10th of the Vashon Island School District School Board. And I need a approval of the agenda motion.
I'll approve. I move.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And now we are going to pass the baton amongst our board members of our roles. So someone help walk me through this.
I'll nominate Zabet to be chair of the Vashon School Board.
I'll second that emotion. All in
Okay.
favor of that one?
Do we vote now or do we call for it?
You need to call the roll.
It's a roll call.
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess that gives me Bob,
Aye.
Toby,
Aye.
Reagan's aye, and Zabet, you vote for yourself.
I will. Aye. Aye.
Good luck, man. It's all yours. Take it away.
Okay, so do I have a nomination for vice chair, co-chair? Anyone?
I'll nominate Toby Holmes for that.
All right, do I have a second? Bob, do I have a second?
Second.
All right,
Oh.
all those in favor, Toby, yes?
Aye. I come prepared.
Reagan?
Aye.
Bob Hennessy?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes, or the call passes, and so congratulations, Mr. Holmes.
Did the chair
Back
vote?
on.
Igualmente. I nominate Zabet for legislative representative.
All right. Okay, any a second on that?
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, we have a second. Toby, yay or nay?
Aye.
Reagan?
Aye.
Bob Hennessy?
Aye.
Okay. The ayes have it. I am legislative rep. Okay, emergency management, do we have a, do we have a nominee for Vashon Island Emergency Management?
I nominate Spring Hack.
Well done.
Second.
Great. All those in favor, Toby Holmes,
Aye.
Reagan Sparks,
Aye.
Bob Hennessy,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. She gets it.
I nominate Bob Hennessy for the Commons Board representative.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
Aye.
All right. Toby Holmes,
Aye.
Reagan Sparks,
Aye.
Bob Hennessy,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Passes. Oh, and another quarter heard from. My screen is so small. Schools Foundation Board representative. Do I have a nominee?
I nominate Reagan Sparks for Vashon Schools Foundation Board representative.
Excellent. Toby, do we have a second? Bob.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Toby, how do you vote?
Aye.
Reagan Sparks?
Sure.
Bob Hennessy?
Aye.
All right, and I say aye as well. Congratulations to all for your new roles. Congratulations, and thank you so much, Reagan and Spring, for doing an incredible job this past year, getting us through. Hopefully, I'm not even saying getting us through a large portion of this pandemic and doing it incredibly well. So my hat is off to you. Toby and I have some experience doing this, but this is a whole new ball game. It seems like every time you step into these shoes. So we're very honored to follow the two of you. You both done a great job.
Bring it home. Bring it home, you guys.
Okay,
Thank you, Reagan, for your leadership and your service. Thank you, Spring.
absolutely, yeah. And so now we have public comments, and which I have to say is a little disappointing because I felt like we were just on the cusp of actually having the public be able to speak.
We had
But
too much
because of the-
public comment last time.
Yeah, because of the Zoom bombing, that is just not going to happen. So we are going back to the old tiresome way, not tiresome, but it's not just not the same. We really like the public standing up in front of us. So Slade, do we have any public comment?
Jody reported to me that we did not receive any public comment this evening before 4 o'clock.
Okay, and just so that we are all clear, when we look down, I'm going to take a little moment out of here to look at the participants. So it looks like we have 4 members of the public with us tonight.
Correct.
Okay, good. I'm glad you guys are here.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so superintendent report.
Great.
Off you go.
Well, thank you, new director, Zabet. It looks like you've done this before, moving us through those nominations quickly. Thank you very much. And also I'll echo the appreciation for Reagan and Spring during the school closure and helping guide us, guide the conversations, guide the decision-making, guide our processes as we move through the, while we tackle coronavirus and distance learning. I am going to start with land acknowledgement. The Puyallup people lived here long before and during the colonization of the Americas and the westward expansion of the United States. We recognize these indigenous people of the Salish Sea, their displacement, dispossession, and continued presence. And as we reflect on the past and move to the future, let us be reminded that our school district sits within the traditional lands of the Puyallup people. I'm going to start off with our just school year update. I'd like to point out that the current COVID-19 disease activity as reported on the King County website today was 419 per 100,000 in the last 14 days. And if folks may not remember, but last November, it was 212 at the last board meeting. And so pretty close to double that. And just as yesterday, it was 423. So in response to that, I just want to share with our public that Health Services does meet with administration weekly to review and another, we meet to speak about the current, we've had 4 instances of confirmed cases within the district, all 4 unique circumstances in which those cases were confirmed. And a big shout out to my health services team, and that's Sarah Day and Ann Zaff and Elizabeth Parrish, who work tightly with and closely with the Medical Reserve Corps and Vashon Be Prepared to do contact tracing, to consult with us, and we also consult with the Department of Health, in particular Sarah Regal, who consulted with us on our last confirmed case. Just to give an update to the board, our food services will resume on Monday of next week. Jody confirmed that earlier. So I'm going to move pretty quickly through some of this information because we have quite a few policies to review tonight and some reports. The board, as you saw an email that I sent to you, WASDA and the governor in their proclamation has extended the OPMA to January 19th, 2021. And I want to let you know that about a wonderful experience that I had last week attending the Racial Equity Pact, and that is our racial equity team at the high school, the student racial equity team. Kristen Adams and Kara Weber support that as their advisors, but we had about 9 students attend, and they shared, we met for about a little over an hour, and they're working on quite a few projects, but I'll highlight a couple of them. Aaliyah had a great idea to distribute postcards, kind of holiday postcards with equity messages on them from Black and Indigenous people of color. And so I expect our community will be getting those. And they did give a shout out to Mr. Gus at the high school for providing the resources for that. Also, if you are on campus at all, if any of our community is on campus, there's a new mural that is going up on the wall to the east, I believe, of the high school. It's just in its early stages, but I'm excited every time I pull up to drop off or pick up my son for cross country to see this new mural going up, and that it's student designed and student completed. So The Racial Equity PAC team is also working on the MLK Assembly coming up, and even more exciting, Kristen and Kara have invited the Racial Equity PAC students to coordinate with our teacher-led and staff-led racial equity team. And providing some PD for the entire staff, which they do on Fridays. And so it's very exciting to see that work. What a wonderful group of students and amazing adult volunteers who are supporting that team. Also, I just want to make everybody aware, the high school team, they don't need to speak about this. I brought them on today, Mr. Gus and Greg and Dan, to speak about the quarter model. But VHS is tracking D's and F's while we are in the second quarter, and students are continuing to work with teachers, and Danny and Gus are continuing to work with counselors and teachers with their student support team, looking at tier 2 supports and continuing to strengthen the tier 1 supports for our students with D's and F's. And so I'm going to leave the rest of my, here's some upcoming events. So January 14th is this is important, board, so listen please. January 14th is our first board meeting of the year, and we're going to be meeting with Brandy and doing a 6:00 p.m. facilities building tour. And so I'm hoping that everyone can make it at 6:00 that evening. We have the occupancy permits for the maintenance building. I'm hoping that we can take some pictures. I know it'll be dark at that point in time, but Susan McCabe, our communication specialist, will be writing up a press release for the Beachcomber shortly thereafter. Hopefully she'll be interviewing some of our board members, and then our regular board meeting will start at 7:00. Our next board meeting in January for everybody is January 28th, and that meeting will start at 7:00. Then it's important to know too that in February, we only have one board meeting, but then following that board meeting, February 15th to the 19th is our midwinter break. And then on February 23rd, the board will be meeting for a board workshop from 5:30 to 8 p.m., continuing that foundation work that we pointed to in our last board workshop in October for strategic planning next year. So with that, I'd like to welcome Danny and Mr. Gus and Greg to the meeting. If you're a member of the community or a staff member or a student, you know that you've been surveyed on the quarter model, and I will go ahead and let Jody share the screen of some of those results, and then let Danny, Greg, and Gus summarize that work that is in progress. It's not complete, but the work that's in progress. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So this was a survey that we developed in partnership first with our community engagement group. That's a collection of parents and staff and community members who have been working with us really since August to ensure that we are staying close to our community around their experience of this pandemic version of school and getting feedback for them. They helped develop a survey in mid-October. And so we actually incorporated some of the metrics and questions that they had in that October survey into this survey. And this survey was designed to look at two things. First, it was to, again, find out how things are going in the current model of school at McMurray and the high school. So this is a secondary only survey. It was not administered to Chautauqua students or parents. So we were following up and we repeated several of the same questions that were given in that October survey. And then the second part of the survey was asking folks to give us feedback around what their preferences looked like for this coming second semester. And what that looked like was in the form of this question. And we asked them simply, of the three options, did they prefer to keep the model as it exists right now, or did they seek to have a quarter model but with some modifications, and not specifying what those were? or would they like to change to a 6-period semester schedule? And the example or kind of version of that we provided is what many areas surrounding districts offer, which is 3 classes one day, 3 different classes the next day, and then a day off, and then repeat. So the results here were collected as of this past Friday, the 4th. I realized the chart says 12/1, but in fact, we updated this after that. So the survey closed on the 4th, and these were the responses. All means parents, students, and staff. McMurray means everyone, students, staff, or parents who identified being associated with McMurray. Similarly, VHS means parents, students, and staff from VHS, and then we broke it out by user type, parent, student, and staff. So that just provides kind of a snapshot, and you can see that the data definitely communicates that lots of things are working for folks about the current quarter model. And so right now, what Greg and I are doing are meeting with our teacher leads. We're processing some of the results from this survey and talking about what would it look like to design our model for second semester. Then we'll take it to our staff and have a similar feedback, kind of diving deeper into what would the right model look like for second semester. I'll also highlight that in our Infinite Wisdom, we offered 5 different open-ended questions for all the users to fill out. And so, for instance, at the high school, we had a little over 500 people take the survey. So I am making my way through the 2,500 comments that were offered up. And Greg similarly has his own truckload of comments. But really, as I've been making my way through those comments, I'm starting to see themes and some really helpful and important anecdotes and pieces of feedback about our student experience. And that will help us not only develop a model that can best meet those needs, but also highlights kind of what some specific pain points might look like, or some really important characteristics that we want to hold on to that are working for folks.
Danny,
just want to make sure.
sorry, can I interrupt?
Does want to add to this, or?
Danny, I have a question. If you're ready to share, are you in a position to share some of those stories or anecdotes or suggestions that you think are valuable? Are you ready to share those yet or not yet?
Not really. It would be a little unfair to highlight the ones that I can remember right now without being able to represent the ones that I am not recalling or haven't cataloged. But I can say that generally speaking, people appreciated having fewer classes to focus on. They appreciated starting later, like so our 9 a.m. start time. They appreciated starting their classes on the hour, 9, 11, and 1. And they appreciated having flexibility around how we utilize our smart and homeroom times. And they found it challenging to manage and deal with the 80-minute period overall. They found it challenging to have a 30-minute lunch where they often are in the position of actually making their lunch and then eating it, as opposed to having it handed to them, or being caught up in the rush of student exuberance and eating, like plowing their food down. So the lunch hour was mentioned. And then there's just really a lot of students and families right now who are struggling. You know, they're struggling with the time of year and the weather and the isolation and the accumulation of doing this version of school, and the pandemic itself is just starting to weigh heavy on folks. And so there's a lot of comments that kind of speak to what that looks like and the challenges that people and families are having, everything from depression and mental health challenges to disengagement, motivation challenges, So there were a lot of stories and specifics around that.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you.
What would you add?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized those well. I would characterize, I think, the staff concerns around, that flow of the day has been challenging to continue to engage students throughout the day. And I would think particularly, at both levels, finding a space in the day where teachers can have some dedicated time and effective time where they can reach out and intervene and support students who may be struggling. We intended that last piece of the day to provide that, but that's been a real challenge, I think, at the end of the day to keep students engaged for that type of support. So figuring out a way we could build that in a little bit earlier is really important. And I think providing some breaks throughout the day might support students and teachers in a lot better way.
Are there other questions from the board at this time?
I have a question around, it's almost hard to envision going back to school, either every day, like the good old days, or even in a hybrid model. And as I've wrestled with the different logic problems of how do you fit the pieces together and even the baby steps going forward, I see some roadblocks in all the different models. There's not an ideal one. So is there a point if we select quarters, modified quarters, or semesters where we just simply can't return? Or do you envision creating a schedule that provides the opportunity for significant return of students and staff at some point in the spring, which we are really hoping for?
Yep. It's really good and important question. Something our teachers are asking as well, and lots of it's within the survey itself. We're asking that very question. And as we consider what the second semester schedule should look like, the first thing I think it's important everyone understands is that we are constrained by our kind of critical infrastructure skyward to choose either a 6-period semester or a 3-period quarter schedule, or something else. But whatever we choose, we are committed to it for the entire semester, and that's not just an act of will. It is an actual constraint of the system. So whatever we choose, we have to live with it from day one till the end of the year of second semester. And so when faced with that reality where we don't have the ability to pivot from what might work best in a pandemic remote learning setting to what might work best in a hybrid to what might work best in a full return to in-person learning, then I think it's incumbent upon us to consider what is going to be the best fit for what we know now, and then what will be the best fit for what we might face in the future. And what we know now is that we're going to start second semester in full remote learning. And I think that it would be kind of beyond optimism to think that we're going to return to hybrid learning anytime soon after the start of second semester. So we're really looking at a pretty sizable chunk of second semester having the certainty of staying in remote learning. And so with that, I think we need to have a school model that can really help students start their second semester and be as successful as possible. If we were to stay in quarters and then have to consider what a hybrid model would look like, or even a return to in-person, what we can't change is that we're going to be running less than 6 classes. But what we can change is all the time, all the bell schedule, how long those classes are, how frequently they meet, what days of the week they meet. Those things remain flexible for us. And so I think that we can, there's still a lot of levers that we can pull to try and help make that hybrid experience one that makes sense as we consider what that looks like.
Danny, hey, this is Bob. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Quick question about start times. Could you talk a little bit about constraints, limiting factors about starting at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock? Yeah, I mean, just we've heard that suggestion. Why not just, since we're fully remote, start at 10 o'clock? Could you talk a little bit about limiting factors on that?
Well, the biggest limiting factor is how do we have enough? I mean, how long are our class periods going to be? So that's something we're actively in planning around for a second semester. And then how many classes will we run? And then how will we make that work both within the student day as well as the teacher work day? So of course, school is the combination of two things. It's the students and their experience, and it's the staff and their experience. And so we have to somehow make those two things work. I don't know that there's anything in particular that would prevent us from starting at 10. But I will be honest and say that I haven't read a single suggestion from anyone asking from that. It didn't come across in the survey.
I would add, Danny, that actually there was a number of comments in the survey about they appreciated the 9 o'clock start. I think it meets maybe the best balance. I'm sure there's some students who may prefer to start a little bit later, but I think the 9 o'clock, is a healthy balance of starting a little bit later than what we would typically start, but also doesn't push the end of the day too far out that, they can't do something else in the late afternoon. So, I think we want to keep that balance intact for students and staff, and that's important to everybody.
And of course, the part you hit on was that, we have to negotiate this sort of, with our partners, teaching staff, et cetera, to, reach something that works for everyone. So thank you.
Great, then any more questions for our folks? And then that will essentially conclude the superintendent's report right now, but any more questions before we move on to the board member remarks?
A question around the timeline and how we wind up communicating this. What's the schedule look like? And not the actual schedule, but what's the timeline of communicating this out?
Thanks, Toby.
Yeah, certainly Danny and Gus speak up on this. I think what we're in the process of is engaging our staff this week and into next week about processing some options for modification. We want to poll our staff and get a good sense of what they're where they're feeling we can make some important changes to address the concerns that came up. And we would hope to make a decision even as early as late next week, and then likely communicate that out right when we come back in January. So that's kind of, I'll speak for the three of us, but is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, we have the heaviest lift, I think, with respect to AP classes and how we move the schedule around to accommodate students who are taking AP classes, because we need to ensure that they have the opportunity to be prepared for taking the AP test, which, to be transparent with you, the College Board has been quite poor in accommodating the pandemic reality for schools across the nation, and they have not changed any of their timelines with any meaningfulness around when those tests are. So we will be making some changes to our master's schedule in moving classes around in order to accommodate and support those students in AP classes.
Not an easy go.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, admin team. Of course, I know, Gus, you're going to be staying on for CTE, and if anybody else, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the board meeting. But if you're not following up in any other reports, I wish you a good evening.
Yeah, thank you, all three of you.
Thanks, everybody.
That,
Thank you.
looking forward to hear what you decide.
Great.
Okay, Slade, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, board member remarks. Let's start with Reagan. What do you got? Anything? Got?
I'm just have just a update with the Vashon Schools Foundation. We're having our year-end funding drive. It's we're all in this together is our theme, and our hope is to raise money here at year-end to help support the schools through the COVID crisis, so that when we are able to return in person, everything is still there that everyone remembers, and we can still pay for it all. So there are some cards going out, and there's some email and social media that you'll be seeing from the foundation. And we just started a couple days ago. We already have raised nearly $4,000. So there's definitely some quick response and a lot of generosity in our community as usual. And that'll be going from now through year end. You might remember that the foundation usually has a back to school fund drive in September, which we forgo, however you say that. We didn't do it given the situation at the time with COVID and all the uncertainties. So without a fall fundraiser, we're hoping this year end will help us make up difference. We have about $20,000 left to raise to reach our annual goal that we set at the start of the year. And so we feel like it's very doable. We also have a generous matching donation from Workhouse Media. Parents of a couple of our middle school students have been putting up a $10,000 donation each year for the past several years, and they're doing that again for us. So everything is matched up to that 10,000. So if we can get 10,000 from the community, at least, and more. And we also had a donation from Thriftway that was from $7,000. So we're getting lots of lovely gifts and interest. And I just want to remind everyone to, when you're doing your year-end giving, if you're able to give, given the pandemic this year, please try to remember the Schools Foundation.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
And congratulations to Amy Broomhall, your new fearless leader.
Yep, Amy is going to be amazing. We've been trying to talk her into it for years now, and this year we managed to rope her in. So
well done.
Go Amy.
Well done. Yeah, exactly. Bob, you have anything? Nothing? All right. Toby?
Thanks. Happy to be here. Good to see everyone. One thought comes to mind, which is I'm still really interested in supporting our commitment towards racial equity and equity in general in the district. And to support that, I'm trying to attend more webinars, web meetings, and seminars. A lot of them are interactive. Some are just educational training and opportunities to engage with other organizations around the topics of, how do you move your organization forward? How do you create an anti-racist environment? Some are related to education, some to other type of commercial organizations. Two reflections on some of that experience I've had recently. One is that we've done a lot of really, really important work. And we have a deep commitment as a board and as a community, an educational community. And so I'm really excited about that. I think that a lot of other organizations are at the starting point, which is sad, but it reinforces that this is a really long path. It's super important. I'm feeling a recommitment myself, which is important. And it's exhausting work. After an hour or two of those meetings, I just want to curl up. It's really, emotionally toiling. But I bring it up tonight because as we have online education, it's really easy to forget all the things that are happening that you don't see because we're so glued to the computer. We don't really see people in real life anymore. And so I think a lot of the work that we want to be doing is not noticed, or we don't know where the levers are to pull to support the families and the students and other members of the community in the way that we'd really like to. So it's just something that I encourage everyone to stay mindful of, and I look forward to continuing that heartbeat through our work going forward.
Yeah, that is very true. Thank you. Thanks, Toby. I will say that it seems like so long ago now, but Slade and I went to the WASDA annual conference, and it was interesting. It was all obviously online, and so it was very different than normal. And I took pages and pages of notes because it's always, I find all sorts of things that are interesting, and I won't go into detail because I could just talk on and on and on about it. But I will spare you. But I will tell you that one thing that I thought was very disturbing, and maybe you all have known this, but I did not. But they did a survey. I don't know who. Anyway, OSPI maybe. They did a survey, and they found that 60% of all principals in the state were thinking about leaving their jobs. 60%, and 40 to 30% of teachers were thinking about leaving their jobs.
So that's shocking. Is there a comparison to non-COVID years? Or is it normal for principals to, when they're pulled in October, to feel that way?
We can ask Greg and Danny if they're still around. But I just think that it's shocking. And also, I just have such appreciation for our staff and what they have been doing, even more so. And so that was sort of a jaw dropper for me. And then I know that Greg and I don't know, Slade, if you went, but we went to a really great one about sort of the history of the racism in Washington State, which was fascinating and horrifying. And yeah, it just, and sadly, not very many surprises. I think we like to think that we are not the South. And so we are, I can think of a very, all I can think of is a really inappropriate term, but like everything here is just great and rosy. And we have had, KKK Klansmen here. We have had there was the anti-Asian riots up in Bellingham. I mean, all sorts of things. Anyway, it was a very, again, eye-opening and fascinating history. And then there was also some very interesting things about sort of what's coming up in the for the legislative term this year, and is there money for anybody in the state? And I think that sort of the takeaway that we all got was we're hoping to not lose anything. We'll be lucky if we get out of this just neutral. So, but there are lots of people who are fighting on our side. So that was good. So it was very, I thought at least it was really worth going to. I think Slade, you thought the same. I think Greg thought the same as well.
If any of those sessions are recorded, particularly the one about racism in Washington State, I'd love to
yeah, they are, but I think, I don't know if we can show those without, it's proprietary. They have their,
right. Or maybe there's if there's maybe the presenter, if you have that information.
Yeah, and she's the presenter, Mary Furtakis. She's in Tukwila. She's been a board member for ages over there, and I thought she was great. So, okay, Greg or Slade, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you hit some of those highlights. I appreciate all three of us being able to go, and it was a little odd not being able to kind of socialize and debrief a lot of it together, and so that I certainly missed that part.
Yeah. But it was all right. Okay. So Ella and Mead, did you guys flip a coin? See who wants to go first?
Yeah, I think I lost this coin
You drew the short straw, so
yeah,
you go first.
I did. I know it's rough. Yeah, okay. I think today I'm just gonna start with oh yeah, a quick Riptide update. So basically, the Riptide and the Beachcomber have officially started collaborating, which is pretty exciting. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that there's been some Riptide articles featured in the Beachcomber, and we're also having a few writers writing specifically for the Beachcomber in the next few months. So look out for that. Another incident that happened just this past week. There was an Instagram account set up by a student at the high school, and the account was created with the intention for students to send in rumors and false information that like targeted specific students. It pretty much boiled down to cyberbullying, was what it was. And so, a lot of students were affected by it. Luckily it was deleted very quickly, I think, within 24 hours. So, that's lucky, but, a lot of students were impacted. I had a lot of kids talk to me about it. But really what the incident kind of showed was that there was kind of a lack of protocol, at least in online learning, for kids to report accounts like this. Like, this isn't the first time that the high school has had like cyberbullying Instagram accounts, believe it or not. And in this online setting, like, students don't have access to anonymous alerts, or at least that they know of. And so it'd be really helpful, I think, to have like protocol set in place that students are aware of to report incidents such as this to maybe like Danny Rock or Mr. Gus or someone else. Just a clear solution that students could understand and follow. And that's all I have.
Okay, so we had a student advisory board meeting on Tuesday, and one of the main parts of the discussion was how school sports are continuing, even with like how bad COVID is, and many like club sports have stopped. But students, one of the main themes was that students just emphasized how much they appreciated sports for both like mental health and just like social activity, since it's one of like the few times that we get to see each other actually in person. And some students did feel that the safety measures could be improved, but it was also emphasized that sports, specifically cross country, because that's like one of the few that's still going, they can really be adapted with like more safe COVID protocols that can continue to like keep students safe as needed. And then like, other sports like wrestling and football and basketball are not adaptable in the same way. So I know Dr. McSheehy encouraged students to participate in sports like cross country just because of the ability to be COVID safe. And yeah, that was about everything.
Yeah, how many students do we have participate in that meeting? Do you remember, Mead or Ella?
Probably like 10 to 15.
Yeah, we've had a really good turnout so far, and it's a fantastic group of students, and typically they try to come up with the agenda items, but I just want to, the next time we meet will be in January, and it'll be before that January 28th meeting, so on the 26th. And so board, I just want you to kind of keep that in mind. If there's an interest or a question or a discussion item that you would like to have students engage with, I'll, in addition to kind of sending my call for agenda items to Ella or Mead, I will send it to you as well, okay?
Ella and Mead, this is Bob. Great reports, thank you. I love that what you guys do is it's concise and it's actionable and it's informative. So in terms of the actionable, Danny or Slade, what about Mead's suggestion about protocol for reporting online accounts or social media accounts that we can help them in intervening?
If you're okay,
Yeah,
I can jump in here. Oh, Danny, go ahead.
No, actually, I'd love it if you'd respond, but hi, Ella, and hi, Mead. It's great to see your face. Yeah, Gus, go.
Agree. Also, hi Ella. Hi Mead. Great to see you as well. And thank you, Bob, for asking that question. Just so you're aware, anonymous alerts is still on the VISD website and is still usable right now. And Mr. Rock, myself, or anyone else that's selected by the person who's making that report can still receive anything. Specifically, not to this particular incident that you're speaking of now, Mead, and I'm pretty sad to hear about it, honestly. But earlier in the year, there was a similar Instagram account that was created to do some of the same thing, and it was a violation of students' privacy rights because it showed images, sound recordings, and names of students from a class place, and it also picked a snippet of a really impressive and meaningful class conversation around a very difficult topic. And one of those moments where it was actually pretty impressive, the back and forth between students and the buildup of what they were doing. And they picked a 10-second snippet to post something that just standalone felt inappropriate. And in that moment with the anonymous alert, I was able to investigate pretty quickly, speak to that class pretty quickly, and kind of talk about the violation of privacy rights. And within, I'd say, minutes, it was deleted and not available online. So I don't have all the answers, and I won't pretend to, but I definitely want to let you know so you can let your peers know. The anonymous alerts is still there, still available, and in the situation where they're okay with just contacting us directly, it'll get really quick results and response from us.
And I just want to follow up to say, Mead, I felt like you had two things to say there. One was, is it still active? And yes, it is. And that's what Mr. Gus was speaking to. But the second thing he said is, can we provide some education to students about how to handle situations like this? And that's a great suggestion and something that we can work with our staff to help implement so that students get that direct information as well. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
I was wondering too, maybe Gus or Danny, is there a way to just send something out that just says a reminder to everybody that the anonymous tip line is up and running, and even though we're not old school, it's still there?
For sure, that's the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of further conversation that our teachers can have with students around some of the nuances involved in making sure that they're also putting themselves forward as a trusted adult that students can go to if they need. So sometimes students want to report through the anonymous alerts, but sometimes they actually want to go to a trusted adult and they want to be able to share something with someone. And so I think there's multiple ways that we can kind of respond appropriately. And it's just also a good time of the year to make sure folks know that there's that they're not having to do their challenges on their own.
Yeah.
So
thank you. And thanks. And then Mead, maybe this is something that you guys can talk about. I'm sure you're already thinking about this, but doing something about it in the Riptide, or mentioning it in the Riptide, and getting the word out.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about that today, believe it or not. So yeah,
Okay.
we'll see what we can do there.
Yeah. Yeah, because I just feel like there's, the more ways we can get the word out that the line is up and running and that there are adults who are ready to move on this very quickly, the better. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you both. Thank you for those good reports. And always, if you have questions or whatever, just don't hesitate to get in touch with me or with Dr. McSheehy about anything of these. Okay.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Mead. Have a good evening. I know you have.
You do. Have a good evening.
Okay. The reason we're all here, CTE.
Don't say that.
I love it. It's my favorite. Support, so,
I gave him forewarning.
about how enthusiastic I am about CTE.
The whole board.
Sorry, we'll just apologize right now. Sorry, guys.
Don't worry about it. I'm ready. I'm excited about it too, to be honest. So we're good. Okay, so this was meant to be an update of some of the programming that's going to be started this year, as well as some of the upgrades to the CTE facilities, and both at McMurray and at the high school, as well as a small showcase of some student sample work based on what we're able to accomplish in a distance learning model. We're going to move to the next. Thank you. So in our woodworking space, we had an ongoing issue. My understanding is for some time with a faulty clean out system for our air filtration in that space, and multiple clean outs have been cleaned out and repaired, as well as new ones added, and we're considering even more being put in an additional time to allow for the air filtration system to be fully functional and operational. Additionally, this included a connection to the router joiner planer that didn't have something in place before, as it's a pretty commonly used piece of equipment in there. So we're pretty happy about that additional connection that was made there in our off time. Additionally, down in jewelry, this is also really exciting. One of the first things I noticed about when I walked into this building and this space was that the system you see there on the right picture, below the text, shows the area where they do a lot of soldering. And this was actually turned 90 degrees the other way. And there was a complete blind spot in the entire class where 4 to 5 students could be operating soldering and without teacher visibility. And it made very little sense to me to not have line of sight of students in that space, as well as the way it was positioned was pretty awkward and wasn't actually an efficient use of space. So I had a quick conversation with our teacher and then with facilities, and we put something in place to have that rotated 90 degrees. That included moving gas lines and electrical. And now there is really complete line of sight in the whole classroom space, so that wherever the teacher is working individually with the student, they can look up and have line of sight of students working with, not dangerous, but equipment that can cause a cut or a burn, certainly. Additionally, the tables in which students were using were a little rickety and didn't allow for like a stable use of the jewelry saw, which is a small thing. It's not large, but it's still very sharp and would regularly cause cuts and needs of bandaging on campus. And so we are incredible, and this is really important to feature here. Our incredible facility staff did all of these improvements, all of the safety improvements, as well as the customizing the existing desks and making them more functional and safe and stable. And our teacher is thrilled about it and just really wishes kids could be here to use it all more regularly. But it's a big deal, and the quality of work is going to last this lab a really long time, which is one of the more important things to me in terms of like the legacy of the space. Okay. And then some student work. This is from Q1, and these are from some of our advanced jewelry students. So our jewelry teacher, we had a process in place where volunteer-based, whether with the teacher, the students, and the parents were okay with the students coming in and actually having in-person opportunities to use some of this equipment. This was made available to our, I think, 6 advanced jewelry students in Q1. And these are some of their samples of their work. And they did these wax molds. And then they were able to come in and create duplicates these rings, and you can tell that they're beautiful. They're really quite impressive. And our teacher was thrilled, and the kids were thrilled to be able to have that experience. You can scroll down a little more. And then just to highlight some other projects, and a lot of this is really in partnership with other VISD departments. The McMurray Greenhouse and Foods class. I haven't seen the greenhouse space or the foods class yet, and I don't believe either are fully done, but the equipment and materials to get those things done are in place and available, especially in terms of the foods class. Additional, the word is missing, like refrigerators and burners and things like that were purchased and are available to be installed in the process of doing so now, if they're not already done, which is really exciting to have that place be functional for all students, and not just like, 20 plus students wanting to use one burner at a time or something like that. And then the McMurray Computer Lab was also upgraded over the summer, and this is in partnership with the tech department to extend the life of the equipment that's in there. And the turnaround was quick, so we were grateful to make that happen. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I would just give a shout out to Dan Mayer. I've been checking in on the foods, the kitchen, I guess foods lab is what I would call it, classroom, and he's quite a professional. He's very detail oriented in making that space into an amazing and functional place for our kids when we're able to come back. So it's looking really, really sharp in there.
Thank you for that addition. That's huge. Dan was the one that customized the jewelry desks as well, and Mark Frey was the one that did a lot of the metal work that turned that jewelry soldering space as well. So shout out to that whole team, because when I draw them away for a CTE project, that means that the rest of the team has to stretch it to make all the other usual maintenance and grounds work that we all know and love and appreciate of how great everything looks. They kind of picked it up so that these guys could do these kind of specialty projects within the district. And then finally, Per Lars, a known figure, I think, by most, teaches financial algebra at VHS, and he adds humor and fun and joy each and every day and every week. And in his financial algebra class in Q1, he made a point of reaching out to personal contacts and resources in the region to have a speaker specialist brought in each and every week to share on specific topics with kids. I mean, it's already a real life experience kind of CTE class in terms of financial learning. And then he just made it more real, whether it was a teacher or somebody from an investment firm. They were there every week to share with those kids. So I thought that was pretty cool. I
can attest to that. Alec took that class, and I think it's one of the best classes he's taken at VHS. It was really, and this is one of those times when I think the pandemic has sort of added this silver lining, because it's really easy to have guest speakers just come on in for half an hour out of their time. It's not a big deal, especially when you live on an island.
Yes, Bob.
Along the lines of what Per Lars is doing, do you ever bring in people from the building and construction trades to do similarly with kids who are working with their hands? I'm thinking in particular having girls see women that are in the trades, see how they make their living, learn about what they do. Is that something you would consider doing, or is it not practical?
Three things I heard there. 100% I would consider it. The other component is, are we doing it currently? No. I personally don't have those connections, but I would. I do know that our woodworking and carpentry teacher, when he teaches carpentry in semester 2, would definitely be open to that. And I think this is something that will be shared with. I know this is something that will be shared with the CTE PLCs, and that this is a great opportunity, like a time to pick, to have those experiences. But I can say personally, because I can't claim any credit for Parallars did. But I do have a neighbor who is a Expedia executive and a coding guy, and I've been working on him to be able to come in and do some kind of guest speaking for those classes. But in my world, I don't have those connections, especially locally, but I would be happy to have them.
Okay, thank you.
Toby?
I recognize that CTE programming is entirely different this year. In a lot of classes, I can't imagine how you proceed with them on an online world. But the question I have is, we had a significant carryover of CTE funds last year to this year, and I'd love to understand what that means for our budget, and how do we continue to protect our CTE funding into the future. And so maybe that's a nice segue between the CTE progress monitoring report and the executive director report from Matt. But maybe the question is, with what we're dealing with online learning, are there things we need to be aware of and thinking about now in order to protect the opportunity to continue to draw in CTE funding?
I mean, I can't speak to any sort of national level, federal or state level decisions about what their plans are in terms of continuing this level of funding that we currently have. I haven't heard anything in particular with the legislative committee for the King County board of not the board, but the group of level directors that I meet with like once a month about any concerns right now. In fact, there's been a legislative piece of legislation that's been drafted to kind of protect CTE funds more for CTE, and to limit its use outside of CTE, like indirect expenses. That's been talked about, but I don't know how seriously that will be in place. So personally, I can speak to those macro level things, but in terms of what we do, when I took over CTE last year, my main goal is to maintain compliance and then start to develop an understanding of this program. And one of the things I learned was it's been pretty important to continue to attempt to maximize our carryover each year in case we need it. If there's a need to spend, we will spend. And so, for example, at the end of last year, I was pretty concerned about financial stability statewide, nationwide, in terms of what funding might exist for public education. It was a much more, it was a time of less stability or less knowing, at least on my part. So I wanted to be sure that these McMurray projects were fully funded while those funds were still guaranteed. We were still able to carry over enough. I think, if not max amount, close to that top amount. So what I typically do, and this is something that I could kind of report back on at a different time, is around this time, and I'm starting earlier this year, I'm starting to have meetings with other level directors about projects in the district that CTE would be a benefit to CTE and CTE infrastructure. In terms of equipment, upgrades, equipment purchases, and like future planning. And so that's where the McMurray Computer Lab upgrade came from, or that's where the McMurray Foods Lab completion came from.
Yeah. The peer group that you meet with ever so often, they're also district leaders focused on CTE?
Yes. I meet with all King County CTE directors.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an excellent resource. All right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Is that
Thank you,
all
guys.
we get? Is that all we get?
I think that's all you get.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Gus. And that's great to hear. I mean, really a good shout out to facilities and that team for all their hard work. but also to you for leading it all. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, Matt.
Hello all, good to see you. Let's talk some financial algebra here, or financial gymnastics for that matter. Provided to you is our regularly scheduled monthly financial report. And we'll work off the dashboard and then we'll go, excuse me, go into the enrollment report. This is through, financial is through October, and enrollment will be through the first part of December. And financial is through October, just as the way the calendar lands. Specifically, it's about 16.6% of our fiscal year, and our expenditure is about 14.6%. Over on the revenue side, about 18.3%. And there are a couple things I want to point out in that why we're 18.3. As you mostly know, October and April are when we receive our local tax dollars, hence the large increase. If you notice, from September to October, there's about $1 million increase, and that's due to our local levies coming through in October. And then also, if we look at the revenue side, we see 10.9%. That's the percentage of monthly actual versus annual budget. And we look at our 5-year and 10-year, we notice we have 12.4 and 13%. So there's a little bit of a drop off, and that's mainly due to how the state structures apportionment. And then also we're seeing, like we did last spring, the levy cap in effect on our EP&O and or enrichment levy. So we're not getting as much revenue as we have in the past. Otherwise, everything looks fairly good on the financial side. And with that, any questions?
So our percent of our operating reserve fund balance.
What is the percent? We're at right now, our fund balance is, if I have the report in front of me. Jody, if you could pull up the budget status report for me. And toggle down a little bit, I'll show you right here on this page. At the bottom, our ending fund balance is about 2.7 million right now. And that's due to the October taxes coming in. And that has to get us through kind of until April, if you will.
Yeah. So even though our fund balance modulates month to month based on the revenue apportionment not being flatlined throughout the year.
Correct, absolutely.
Right. But we're still maintaining our target plan for that.
Absolutely.
We're on track for 6.5. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should see a good fund balance at year end.
Do you budget that by month?
No, we don't. That's something that we've discussed over the years. And there's no real way to do it, just because, as you mentioned, Toby, very astutely, the way apportionment comes in, the way our taxes are received, there's no real way to do that.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not sure it provides a lot of value, but all right. I was curious.
Yeah.
That was an interesting point that came up in the budget advisory group. That was sort of a hard thing for a lot of people, probably myself included, to sort of wrap our heads around, that it's not a month-to-month thing.
No, I mean, we see, we operate with students, typically 10 months out of the year that we run a 12-month budget. And apportionment can come in at 5% as it does in November, and then 9% in October, taxes in October, taxes in April, and it becomes kind of wonky to do it that way.
Yeah.
So could you monetize or attach a number to the enrollment delta?
Sure. So if we want to just segue into that, we can do that also. We're right now, as you can see, through December, actual, we lost, if you will, minus 2.02 from November to December actual, and then the average is down 3.81, hence overall minus 24.76 student enrollment, which is, we say about 10,000 or so per student. So you're looking at about $240,000.
So you got $250,000 that we can project of delta revenues to expected.
Mm-hmm.
Budget to revenue.
Yep, exactly. And we've been dealing with that kind of a delta for the last few years, as you know, where we're seeing a decrease in enrollment. And there's lots of explanations as to why. Of course, this year is pretty obvious. But in the past, we've basically seen kind of a gentrification of the island, hence younger, smaller families aren't able to kind of move, grow up, and live here. With that, looking at the middle table, the enrollment data school FTE, as you always ask, and we take a look at now, is where are the students going? Chautauqua, month to month, November to December, we saw a loss of 3.16 FTE. With the notes, as we asked from the schools, we had one student enroll in Harbor School. We had a student enroll at Carpe Diem. And then we had the rest, the 1.16, head over to ALE, head over to Link. Interesting one in this case with enrollment was McMurray. We saw a drop of 9.4 FTE. Now it's shocking on the surface, but when we dug a little bit deeper, well, we realized that we had about 26 students at McMurray, this is a good thing. They enrolled at the high school for upper level classes, so a good thing. And then what you'll see is the high school, yes, there's ebb and flow of come and go with students, but they saw an increase of 3.92 FTE, mainly because of those students coming from McMurray for the upper level classes. And then we saw Link add about 6.62 students, and that was new students coming from, like I mentioned, Chautauqua, but also the high school. So that was the ebb and flow, and the overall average, like I said, we're down to a minus 24.76 FTE. Any questions?
Just, I didn't think Toby's comment was that astute.
Oh, I will say that it seems like, I mean, it's not, it's bad, and comparisons are odious, as one would say. However, other districts are really getting slammed so much harder. I'll just knock on wood.
They are, Zabet. And at the last meeting, I'd mentioned OSPI, and we have asked for OSPI to do this again, but they did a review last year, this year through September in regard to districts and where they stand thanks to the pandemic, or no thanks to the pandemic. But we looked at other districts around us, and at least through September, we saw Bremerton at minus 5.6%. We had Central Kitsap at minus 3.8, North Kitsap at minus 7.9%, Peninsula at 8, almost 9%, Tacoma at almost 7%. So I think we're about 1.7% of enrollment of budget.
Where in the world are the kids going? They don't just disappear, and you actually name districts that are contiguous. So it's not like they're shifting from one district to another. Are they just unenrolling? What sort of?
Anecdotally, we're hearing homeschooling to private schools to there are people moving out of state to go to the states that have in-person school.
And we talked a little bit about this at the budget advisory group about how the OSPI and others are asking the state to hold harmless, don't use these numbers against us for the following years.
Right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, which, who knows what they'll do.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Anybody else? All right.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Oh, so Spring and I get to talk about McMurray.
That's right.
Okay. So first,
I'll be your goose.
What?
I'll be your goose, Maverick.
Okay. I have to say that I really, really, really miss being in school. I mean, it's a whole different experience to suddenly pop into this class where it feels very disruptive to the class. It's
you didn't stay a whole 80 minutes.
Yeah, here we are, and and you can't just sort of be unintrusive and be in the background. It's very much we're coming to look at you. but the students and teachers were very gracious, and it was great to see them. We went to Larry Dubois' class and Carrie Hatfield's. And I have to say, I have taken we just happened to hit Carrie's class when she was like, okay, everybody, we're getting up. Everyone's like, stretch, and let's do downward dog, and let's do all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, it feels so good. Like, thank you. So a big shout out to Carrie.
Right.
I now go to my other meetings and I'm like, oh, we've been sitting for too long. Like, let's get up. But it was good. We talked in Larry's class. He was saying that his students had said there were some good things, that they can stay in bed longer or they can just stay in bed. And that the fridge and the snacks are nearby. Those were up. Those were all thumbs up. But the thumbs down was that they can't see their friends, and a lot of them said it was super hard and super confusing and hard.
Mhm.
They're having a rough time. So
Mhm.
it was not.
Yeah, I was glad that he took a little bit of time and asked just some questions of the kids.
Yeah.
So that was not eye-opening to me, but certainly adding to my heartache.
Confirming everything that we are dreading is actually true.
Mhm.
And then so it was good, and we actually had a really good conversation about the number of kids who are the IEPs and special ed kids. There were 8 of them, maybe there are more, but some families are concerned about the numbers, so they don't want to be going, but they're great coming in, doing that one-on-one stuff. We talked about the great job that Yvette and Kaylee
Mhm.
did, the counselors doing a middle school meeting online with West Seattle folks and sort of recruiting those families, which is great. So maybe that's where some of those kids are going. They're coming over here.
Their commute's a lot easier.
The commute is a hell of a lot easier. Yeah. And then we talked a little bit about Delaney Steele, who's the new Latinx liaison. Things seem to be going well with that. And I'm sort of doing this quickly but it was just, it was good. And we talked about staff morale and how, there's no surprises here, that it's sort of up and down, which I think reflects the morale of our entire community. Just kind of really, really sick of this, and it's just, yeah.
Where does Delaney sit in the department structure? What department is she in?
So she is, in her department, the 612 Latinx Community Liaison Department. So she's picking that up.
Who does she report to?
So she reports. I think you would probably say technically I would be her supervisor, but she works closely with the admin teams, the counselor teams, kind of the student support teams at the middle school and the high school, with collaboration in the elementary.
She's super cool. I'm glad that she's on board. I just, as you're suggesting, I was like, oh, like just trying to figure out where she fit.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm really happy that we have her as a resource.
And she's working with Sally as well.
Sally Adams, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. I know that Spring and I really appreciated Greg taking the time out to meet with us. I know you guys are all busy, but we both really appreciated it, and especially to the teachers and to the students who let us go in. As I say, it feels I felt very large, like I'm in your class now. It's not like sneaking in and just being sort of quiet. And as and it was funny, as Larry said, like, I'm really getting to know their voices really well, because they are all off screen with their avatars on. That's it. But they're making it work.
I heard a student mention that being online is actually really personal in that the student said that it felt like the whole class was in their home, right? So if they turn on their camera, or even, the ambient noise, it's a really personal space, which wasn't something that I had thought about, which is strange since I work from home. But it's really a different feeling, right? And the layers of trust that you have to have with your co-students and the teacher, and just the rhythm of things. So
Right.
I'm looking forward to the board site visit I have coming up.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 So thanks. So thanks to Slade and Greg for helping do that.
No, thanks for both of you coming, and it's always one of my highlights is our learning walks as an admin team, but also those board site visits. So
Yeah. Okay, moving slowly along. Discussion. So policy revisions.
actually, we have some. Do we have an action item first?
Yeah, I thought so. Jody, can you scroll up a smidge? There it is.
Yeah, just a reminder to the board, this item is a carryover from our November meeting that we did not have a chance to have a first reading on. I'll let Amy share why it's important for us to take action on this before the new year. That's when this is supposed to begin. So I hope everyone has read through the materials. Amy will give a summary of it. And then I'll be recommending the board take action on this. But as I recall, we need to take Isabel, I'll just remind you, we need to take a vote on suspending our first reading policy in order to, our second reading policy in order to take action on this with the first reading.
But don't we do it that we can agree to
Yes.
do this on a one meeting?
So moved. Sorry, Svet.
Okay, then.
Well, I'll second, I guess, if we're doing it that way.
Okay, so, all right, well then, wait, so just to be clear, we now can, you guys just approve that we can now move to approve this?
After the board votes, since you have a motion and you have a second.
Yeah, but this is just to be clear, this is not that we're not voting on this motion, on this.
On the resolution, correct. You're just voting on the ability to approve it on a first read only.
All right, everybody clear on that? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now moving on to resolution number 787. Amy, did Amy want to talk about it?
Yes, let's have Amy provide a summary of it, and then if there's any discussion or questions, then the board can take action.
Okay.
Thank you very much, first of all, for voting for that suspension of rules. This is actually slated to take effect January 1st, and this is the last board meeting prior to that date. We've already been accepted into the pool by their board on a unanimous vote, and so this is kind of the final step in the process to move forward. This is something we've actually talked about doing for a couple of years, and really the work that it took to combat the employment security fraud outbreak this past spring, plus a desire and really a need to make our costs more predictable in a time of what feels like rampant uncertainty. It really provided the incentive to take another look at the membership. Financially, we typically budget around $30,000 each year for unemployment and spend anywhere from $8,000 to the full $30,000 depending on claim activity. To join the pool, the first year's contribution is calculated as 0.2% of the prior year's gross payroll. So in our case, that means just under $27,000. And we need to maintain the required minimum balance each year, which, depending on the expenditures from the prior year, could be nothing. It could be $10,000, but it will never exceed the required percentage of our prior year's gross payroll, which is within what we typically budget anyway. We estimate that based on our typical claim activity, by about year 3, we will see a significant reduction in what we need to actually budget each year for unemployment, which frees up funds, which is always a positive thing. The pool provides claims processing, regulatory and compliance management, reporting. They have in-house counsel that represents the district during any appeals and hearings. They provide legislative updates and training. We will still review any data and the quarterly claims reports before any funds are expended. So we still have oversight, but they're doing all of the nitty-gritty administrative processing, and that is all they do. And so we feel like it's a real positive for the district. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody? Questions?
School districts usually don't like pools. This is one that I like.
And we participate in the risk pool for our insurance, which has been amazing. Same general organization, the Workers' Compensation Trust. This is another arm of that same process through the VISD, and they've been phenomenal.
Yep. Okay. Bob, Reagan, any questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. All right.
I move that we approve the resolution.
Second.
787.
Segundo.
Wait, I'm asking for a second. Do I have a second?
That was a second in
Okay.
another language.
That was Spanish Bob there.
Oh, okay.
Roberto.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of passing resolution number 787?
Aye.
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 All right. Passes. Amy?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Go
board.
to your homework.
Hi, Amy. Thank you.
Okay. Now, so much to discuss. In 5 minutes, I see. We have 5 minutes to talk about all of these 8 policies.
Right. So I will go ahead and this is the first reading for these policies. Again, these policies are carried over from the meeting before. I'll spend just a short period of time on each one. And then I'll pause after each one if you have questions, and I'll answer them to the best that I can. And then if there's any other discussion around them, and then we'll expect these on a second read for the January meeting, barring any other further discussion or revisions. So I'll just
And just to reiterate, these are all WASDA recommended policy enhancements.
correct. These are not any revisions that I have designed or done or any to that effect. So yes.
And none of them are new policies. They're all adjustments to existing policies.
There is one that I may consider newer or new-ish, and it's the 3143, which is basically a policy that's merging a couple policies similar to when we merged some student discipline policies last year.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And so, they're in a little different order. So I'll start with number 2. Let me go find that. Here we go. So notification of threats of harm or violence or harm. And WASDA created one new model policy by merging the content of former policy 3143 and 3144. And so
I think we're looking at different ones.
We have
hold on, let me bring up my screen. I'm looking at the agenda, so I'm
3143, is that the one you're talking about?
the one that Jody just pulled up was the ALE one. It was 2255.
yeah, they were in a different order when I was working today. So let me go back.
It's okay. We've all read them and committed them to memory, right, folks?
Indeed.
Right.
I think I can pull them up on my own screen.
Right. So, hey, Jody, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. So down below in the agenda, I didn't go, when I did my notes, I didn't go 1 through 8. I did the policies on how they're listed as PDFs.
Okay.
So I did 3120, then 3143, 3414, et cetera.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah, that's the way I'm gonna, that's why I'm gonna do it. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, board. So 3120, next up to bat. So now I'll run back through the other one as well. So 3120 is essentially a notification policy. The changes that we see in this policy are changes around notification when we get enrollment, anyone that has conviction that we're notifying, if they're home, we're not requiring proof, we're requiring proof of residency, and if they're homeless, they're getting automatically enrolled. But this is all around enrollment and notification, and it essentially reflects House Bill 1191. And as Reagan said earlier, this is these are recommendations from WASDA.
Quick question, Slade. You struck the word convictions in sub C. What was the rationale for that?
Because it's Bob, if you read earlier, it's listed down below in the green. If a school principal receives information about adjudications or convictions,
Got it.
he or she will follow the procedure described in policy 3143.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions around 3120? Great. I will close off that. 3143, going back to that. Hold on. There we are. So this is another, WASDA created a new model policy and procedure by merging the content of the former 3143 with 3144. And when I open it, what you're going to see is, again, all new policy. So no revisions or anything, but just a merger of these. What do we do when, how to notify when we have student offenses, and how do we notify for sex offenses, violent offenses, you know, all of our notification obligations. So nothing new basically in our procedures, just one new policy that reflects our notification of juvenile offenders. Any questions from the board? Okay, infectious diseases. So this one, there are quite a few on the policy today that reflect several model policies that involve infectious disease management to reflect official health guidance related to COVID-19. And in this policy around infectious diseases, what it does is actually including the regulations in accordance. If you look down 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, you'll see that we're using language licensed healthcare provider, and we're also using language infectious disease control guide for school staff provided by the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. So it's really what it's reflecting is that, you know, during the pandemic, or when we have when we're in, you know, distance learning, that we're following guidelines not only from the local licensed healthcare providers or local health officer, we're also following guidance from OSPI.
So that section in the third graph, well, I'm looking at a different thing. Never mind. This is infectious diseases we're talking about, 6512.
This is 3414.
Ah, sorry. We have another one down 60. Never mind.
Can we note a spelling error in the third paragraph? Licensed healthcare provider.
Provider. You don't like that?
This is not terribly clear.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make that.
Someone went to a spelling bee this week.
I know. He's showing off now, huh?
Provider. P-R. Can you use that in a sentence? Emergency treatment.
And any other questions about 3414?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And response to student injury or illness. It's encouraging for staff to get certified in first aid. But again, what we're going to see here is school staff will refer to the Joint Department of Health and Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction document how to respond illness and injury at school for guidance. And so it is again, COVID-19 infectious disease management. WASDA has revised several of these policies to reflect official health guidance related to COVID-19. So that's where we're seeing this.
At the end of this 3418, it says superintendent will establish procedures to be followed consistent with this policy.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've created those in various forms since last March. Is there a particular procedure that we need to still create, or is there additional work after this that we have to go through?
Right, I see what you're saying, and right now there's. You're right. I'm operating on many kind of our C19 handbook. Currently, we don't have a 3418P, and so there are actually many policies that we have. I don't know how many actually, but there are several policies that we have that don't have procedures for them, and so.
I bring up the question because I don't want to obligate us to do something that isn't logical or important. So I don't know what the answer is, but that raised a little red flag for me.
Right. So in action, I actually am establishing procedures, but it's not a 3418P that we might, what a procedure that we might see that may follow, other policies, that how we see them.
Okay. Maybe there's some language adjustment in there to clarify that, so we don't set an expectation 3 years from now. Someone says, well, where's the procedure? You've been out of the.
Right. And if they asked, I would point to what we're actually currently doing. I'd have to get clarity in terms of, I don't think this obligates us to have a 3418P. It just obligates me to establish procedures, which I've done. So.
Just trying to avoid a gotcha.
No, I appreciate it. Keep looking out for me, please. Okay. The next one, 3510. Actually, yeah. So on my end, I stuck with 6512, Jody. So pull up 6512, sorry. Because this is still in that same vein of WASDA following through with some policies that respond to the COVID. And so this one's titled Infection Control Program, and this replaces policy number 5130.
This is the comment I was making earlier. Is that a substantive change, the strikeout in the third graph? I mean, it appears to be one, and I just is it caught somewhere else or?
No, so what this is reflecting, I don't know if the board has heard over the news or through the current law, but there used to be three actually exemptions that folks could use when it comes to immunizations. You could use basis of religious belief or philosophical grounds, or if there was concern, a health concern that it would impact, a person's health if they receive the immunization. And they've limited it now to just religious beliefs and the physical concern of harm, and deleted the philosophical grounds. And so
you're reconciling with RCW.
Right, exactly. You said it much nicer than me.
Oh, I do a lot of reconciling.
Any other questions about this policy? Now moving to 3510. ASB. And so this boils down to districts, and if we are asking for fees, ASB fees upon attendance or ASB cards, etc., then we are obligated to produce or to provide reduced fees for students on free and reduced lunch and their families. So the family members is something that is new. And this is to address House Bill 1660. So okay.
All right.
On to alternative learning, policy 2255. And there's some cleaning up of language, and then essentially outlining more language around reporting requirements. It's not really adding anything significantly different than what we do. It's essentially providing more language, more detail around what the reporting requirements are, and also adding in the assessment requirements, and then adding some language around students who drop out of ALE courses, and then our procedures to make sure that what happens when a student unenrolls from the course.
Similar question here. The first sentence says, as defined in the procedure which accompanies this policy. Does this one have a 2255B?
Let me take a look. Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Just following the breadcrumbs.
Nope.
Thank you.
When I read through it last time, again, it's not anything that we currently that we're going to need to change in response to this.
Great.
Let me go back. Bless you.
Thanks.
And then that brings us to 6220, and we are the current 6220, and then our new 6220. The current 6220 was probably crafted after some WASD language, but I know there was some internal editing and revising of that language back then, 2017. And this policy 6220 that WASD has provided is in line with what is necessary for our food services proposal for in compliance for food service procurement review. And if you have questions, I know Matt was kind enough to stay with us this evening to answer questions around compliance for the food service procurement.
And Matt, you've read through the policy 6220.
I have some history behind this. Our food service is currently under audit, and like the finance side, like us, we get audited regularly. OSPI has been adamant that we adopt this new policy specifically around federal funds and procurement and food service that translate to their commodities they receive via the state, federal commodities. And specifically, there's language in there that deals with suspension and debarment and conflict of interest, which we did not have in the current policy, which they are adamant that we adopt in this new one. That's really what it comes down to.
Does it change anything for us operationally?
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
Okay.
There is a P for this, correct, Matt?
Yes, there is.
I remember it. That's why.
Yeah.
Yes. And we follow this letter of the law. This stuff scares me, procurement, because the auditors are always all over this and looking at this policy, and we follow this to the letter of the law.
And what's the difference between the 6220 current VISD and then the WASDA model? We just are showing the before and after.
Right. The difference is the federal side, where our 6220 addresses it in a few short sentences that we will follow federal procurement standards. This one actually spells it out. Like I said, with suspension, debarment in there, letter D, E, conflict of interest. And that's what they were really pushing on that we have specifically spelled out in this new policy, that language.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
You know, it's funny, you read through these individually before the meeting, and it's without the context, sometimes it's hard to trace it through. So thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
Worth the time.
Yeah, even I read through them several times, and then I even have my cheat sheet and notes on the things, and things start to kind of blur a little bit when you have 3 or 4 that I understand why WASDA wants us to update our policies while we're in responding to pandemic situations.
So. But at the same time, you don't want to change a bunch of policies.
Right.
Temporarily.
Right. Right.
All right.
Right. Okay. Anything else? I'm sure we'll go through that. Bob, I expect you to go through all those with a fine-tooth comb. Okay. So consent agenda. Any questions for anybody on the consent agenda?
My only question on that was related to the Perkins grant. It's a fairly long document. Is there anything noteworthy to review in that, or is it appropriate to? Well,
I think right.
I could jump in there, Slade, if you might. The Perkins grant is the material is very long, as you noted. It's really a gateway grant for all of our other grants. They take that information that's provided in our Perkins grant, and we can get other grants through it. Basically, if we don't do this, they reject some other grants or from us. So.
And we've done this previously for a long time as our recollection.
Yeah, every single year, and they require the board to approve it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I move that we approve the consent agenda in full.
Okay. And do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Bob, did you vote?
Yeah.
He raised his hand. Yep.
I can't. He's gone from my little screen now.
I'm
okay.
a man of few words. A bad man of few words.
Oh,
we're lucky.
So not true. So not true. If that were true. Okay. So any new business before we adjourn to the executive session? Going once, going twice. Okay, so thank you, public. We are going to adjourn to talk about the performance of a public employee and how he's been doing, and
Right.
then we come back to this one and close out. Is that correct?
Right. And we typically give our public an estimate of time that we intend to be in executive session and coming back. So
like 9:25, somewhere between 9:25.
Somewhere around there or before, I bet.
Yeah. 9, yeah.
So procedurally, we actually leave this meeting and then restart the other one.
Correct.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Right.
That is
See you over there.
So thank you all for coming. Thanks for the staff who came. We'll see you again at 9:20. I'm assuming everyone will be here for us to say thanks for coming.
Just to remember they have their computers on.
Yeah, so, okay, so we are now leaving and we'll see you later.